Welcome back to another North Andover Youth Center youth-centered podcast. This is our 9th podcast of 2019, and really excited today to have Brian Downey of the North Andover Crusaders here with us to talk about the Crusaders program that we have been running here or partnering with the Crusaders for the last 12 years. So thank you, first of all, Brian, for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to be here.
Brian has been around the Crusaders since pretty much the early stages of it. But I wanted to give our listeners a quick introduction of how this partnership, and I call it a partnership because this is not technically a youth center program. The reality here is we allow the Crusaders to use our gymnasium, and we work with them on getting staff to help them, etc. But it was about 12 years ago that one of my former kids, Nick Savarese, who was then a program director or coordinator for Special Olympics, asked to meet with me and a great resident of North Andover, Kathy Keith, and they had a proposal for me. And we met up in my office and we discussed their idea of possibly using a gymnasium for a program that could match some kids that had challenges with kids that maybe not had challenges in a unified basketball program. I was immediately struck by this from a personal history of this. My niece, Noelle, my sister's daughter, was born with Down syndrome, and she's actually 30 years old now and doing great, has a job and a great life. And I watched very closely as my sister and brother-in-law fought for educational services, fought for recreational services for Noelle as she was going up. So, and I know that there were a lot of challenges with that for my sister and brother-in-law. So I was locked in from day one. I said, let's do this, not knowing a heck of a lot about it. And obviously, Nick was the rep from Mass Special Olympics, but it was Kathy Keith that was the passion behind everything that has started here. Obviously, her son Jimmy, as well as her other children, were involved with the program. And basically, it just kicked off with a Thursday night in the gym, a couple hour slot. And I think originally we had 10 or 15 kids that were involved with it, and then it's grown in the last 12 years. And Brian, before you get into talking a little bit about your history with this program, how about for our listeners that may not know Brian Downey from North Andover? Who are you?
All right, thank you, Rick. So my wife, Michelle, and I, we moved to North Andover about 10 years ago. I'm originally from the North Shore. We grew up in Beverly, and we lived in Boston for a little bit, and we were looking for great communities, and we were absolutely thrilled to land in North Andover. We've got two children. We have 8-year-old twins that are in 3rd grade at the Sargent School, and we just absolutely love being part of the community, and we love what goes on here at the Youth Center, and to not only be part of the Crusaders program, but to have that partnership here with the Youth Center. We were absolutely thrilled.
I first got to know Brian as he was what I would consider just an adult volunteer in the program. I think you said that you were here after maybe the first couple of years. And now Brian is actually, along with his wife, basically the two key people that pull this program off every Thursday night. We set up the table, we get the gym ready for them, but they basically run the program. So, Brian, for folks who really don't know anything about the Crusaders, can you give a little bit of what the program is and what the goals of the program is and how it's evolved under your leadership?
Sure, absolutely. So, certainly need to give a lot of credit to the Keith family, Kathy Keith. We got involved 10 years ago when we moved here. We had been doing some volunteering for the Massachusetts Special Olympics Association, and some of the folks there knew of the Keith family, and we told them we were moving to North Andover. They got us connected with Kathy right away, and she built an absolutely phenomenal program. So when we took over 3 years ago, it was very well established, and again, kudos to Kathy and her family for really getting the ball rolling. So we have athletes that have different, varying athletic, emotional, intellectual, and physical challenges. So it's great to have a range of different athletes involved in the program. We break out into 2 different groups. We have a junior team that includes athletes from the elementary and middle school, and we have a senior team that includes athletes from the high school. And a huge part of the program to help it run is the volunteers, the student volunteers. So students of the same age that volunteer their time and work with the athletes one-on-one. Without them, the program certainly wouldn't work. So we have practice every Thursday night, and then every year we participate in a few different tournaments. The Brooks School has been fantastic over the years with putting on tournaments where we get together with teams from Newburyport, from Andover, Haverhill, Lawrence, Lynn, etc., and have a great time playing a few different games with each team.
Yeah, let me talk a little bit about that, Brooks. Obviously, Brooks head coach and Brooks administrator John McVeigh, one of my former kids here, and one of the most amazing young people. He bought into this right away. I think he was the catalyst for it being over at Brooks.
Yes.
He's done a terrific job with his basketball team being involved with it. I've watched video and seen pictures of his basketball players giving back at that tournament at Brooks. And quite frankly, Brooks is a phenomenal facility to have something like that at. So how many years have you been doing it over at Brooks?
I think this will be our 5th year over at Brooks, and they are the student athletes over there. They get involved. They're the referees during the games. They get the microphone system going. They get rosters of all the different teams, so they announce kids' names after they score baskets. The kids absolutely love it. They'll do a slam dunk exposition. They'll do a shooting competition in between the games. They get the athletes involved. It's absolutely phenomenal. Yeah, John McVeigh and his crew are absolutely amazing.
When will that take place this year?
So next weekend, next Sunday, we've got the tournament that will start about 8:30 or 9 o'clock. We haven't got the exact schedule out yet, but we do. The junior teams play first. Each team will play 2 games, and then we usually break around 10:30 for the dunk competition or the shooting competition, and then the senior teams will play after that. So anywhere from 8:30 to 1 o'clock, we're down there.
Nice. Big shout out to John and the Brooks basketball program for that. Let me ask you something, Brian. We talk about basketball, and I see, obviously, in my gym here, the instruction that's going on. I like to see some of the drills they're doing. The kids are involved, and obviously the gameplay on stuff. But does Crusaders, or are they connected with anything besides basketball, or is it just basketball?
All right, so the Crusaders program itself is just basketball. However, there are other programs available. One of our volunteer coaches, Mike Bono. Mike started a Challenger baseball program either 3 or 4 years ago that is tied in directly with North Andover Youth Baseball. I know that for signing up for the program, you actually go through the North Andover Youth Baseball website, and he's done a phenomenal program with that. So most of the athletes that we have on the Crusaders basketball teams also play baseball in Mike's program in the spring. And then for the fall, there are soccer programs, and North Andover is actually tied in with Andover and under the Andover Stars. And so a lot of the athletes will play together there.
Nice. So you see a lot of these kids that'll go into all those 3 sports?
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Let's talk a little bit about who's eligible to participate. How does, quite frankly, who do they contact? How do they know about it? Or is it just word of mouth?
All right, so a lot of it is word of mouth. Kudos to my wife, Michelle, who is a special ed teacher at Sargent School, first year teaching there. And she did a lot of promotion at the Sargent School as well as the other schools in town. So, that is the reason why we have a lot of new athletes this year in our program. And we do some advertising, but a lot of it is word of mouth. And I think certainly, through the youth center, people find out about the program and they end up contacting me, asking questions. And, parents typically have a lot of questions at the beginning in terms of, what exactly goes on at practice? Are you running sprints if they don't, make a basket, or if they don't get enough foul shots in? Are you yelling at them, or what actually goes on? So I get a lot of questions, and I explain how, our focus really is inclusion. And we want athletes to have a great experience playing basketball, getting exercise, but most importantly, building friendships with the students that they go to school with. And, so when they see each other during the day at school, there's high fives, and, down in the hallway, and, really building those for lifelong partnership relationships is what we really focus on.
I'm really impressed when I'm sticking around here on the Thursday night and I see a lot of the athletes that obviously they know each other, they've competed with each other, and the smiles is just, it's amazing. Let's talk a little bit about the other portion of the kids that are involved, and this started early on. I love when I look out my window over the gym and I see a number of our middle school volunteers helping out, a lot of our high school. I know this year you had a little concern of a lack of some volunteers for the first session, and Kyle Palladino and the youth council stepped up. I think you got a number of their kids now. What's the role of those volunteers? How do they get involved? And what's the success of having those volunteers?
Great questions. So without the volunteers, the program really wouldn't run. And you're absolutely correct. At the beginning of this year, we were a little bit concerned about the number or the lack of volunteers that we had. So again, kudos to your team for help recruiting. I know your team put a message out, and immediately I was overwhelmed with responses from parents who had children that wanted to get involved as volunteers. The number one thing that we expect from the volunteers, and they do a great job, is to make sure the kids have fun. Make sure the athletes are having fun, and again, building friendships is key. That's what we want for when they see each other in the school building during the day, to have that friendship, to become comfortable being around the athletes and interacting with them. So whether it's at lunchtime or in the playground at school, they'll go over and get the athletes involved and include them in whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah, it is pretty impressive, and I'm very proud of our middle school and high school kids that are volunteering on that. You also have some adults, besides you and your wife. Big shout out to Johnny Bag of Donuts McElroy, one of our close friends. I think I talked to you off air that I think John has been involved since the beginning. He's here every Thursday night. Does like to shake hands and do a little bit of talking, but he every one of his children, it's been instilled by him and Julie at home for all of their kids. He has 3 daughters and Jake, and they've all been involved with the program. So what about those adult volunteers? They're like John.
We need their support, and it's critical for the program to be successful. And the McElroy family has been absolutely incredible. And you're absolutely right. I've given John the role of social director because he's fantastic at interacting with everyone, really. We have coaches that we need, particularly with the junior group. The volunteers are fantastic. They are mostly middle school students who need some direction, and so having some parents involved as coaches is critical, for sure. And at the senior level, again, a few parents have been involved, and they've done an absolutely wonderful job. And one of the things that we've worked on with the senior team and with those volunteers, the high school students, is to help them step up and take more of a leadership role. We want this to be a developmental opportunity for them and that matter. And we've got some high school athletes over the years that truly have stepped up and really taken over as leaders with the program. They run practice. They prepare beforehand in terms of what the practice is going to look like, what drills they're going to do, and for how long. And also for those volunteers to lead their peers. And delegate work and so forth. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it really is. And big shout out to those adult volunteers. I do kid with John, but John's one of the biggest promoters of this Crusaders program, not just with his own family, but within the community. He doesn't just talk about volunteering. He steps up every Thursday night, and so kudos again to John and the McElroy family on that. Let me ask you about the parent role in the program. So I see parents come in, especially with the younger kids. They tend to come in and sit in the bleachers and watch. Some of the older kids, I think the parents might leave for a little bit. Is the expectation that they have to be involved, or are they more just as observers? Do they step away from the kid, just like in youth sports in general, where the coach coaches the game and you sit back and watch?
So we have a mix. We have some parents that have wanted to get involved in helping and coaching. coaching. And, we've, especially at the senior level, we've had as many as 3 parents that have gotten involved as coaches. And, they really want to have that interactive experience with their child. And it's absolutely wonderful for them to get that. But it's certainly not what we expect. We have a lot of parents that like to come, sit in the stands, and just for an hour be able to sit back and just enjoy watching their child have fun, play basketball. They get excited when they score, particularly during the games at the tournaments. It's absolutely wonderful to watch parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, grandparents get excited when their child scores a basket. So for a lot of the parents, for a chance to just socialize with each other and enjoy an hour hanging out at the gym watching their child play is fantastic.
Now, with people thinking that it's housed at the youth center, I tend to get some feedback, right? So parents will call me or stop by the youth center, and I'm quick to deflect our involvement with it. Besides giving you the use of the gym and getting some volunteers, but the feedback that I'm getting is usually this is an amazing program. What was established by Kathy and Nick years ago. What's your feedback? I'm sure people talk more directly to you about the program and the effect on their kids.
Yes, it's it's one of the reasons why my wife and I why we do it is the feedback that we get. We get anything from parents that tell us how their athlete, their child gets up on Thursday morning and the first thing they say is, "Hey, it's Thursday. I've got basketball tonight."
Wow. And
there's other athletes that all fall, all summer, continuously ask their parents, "When's basketball starting? When's basketball starting?" And when I hear that, that's exactly why we do this, and I love it. I absolutely love it.
It's great. Kathy used to start contacting me in September, and you also in the fall. Excited to get going. Unfortunately, with our huge schedule here, we can't allow the Crusaders in until the Thursday after Thanksgiving. I'm sure you'd like to get in there a little earlier if you could, but from the Thursday after Thanksgiving until mid-March, every Thursday night, we get a little nervous when there's snow sometimes because this is such, like you're saying, an excitement for the kids that having to close the building because of snow and these kids missing out on a week would just be tough. So we've been, knock on wood, we've been lucky over the years with the weather. Only, I think, a few cancellations. But let me ask you this. If somebody wants to get involved, we talked about they just need to get, but who do they contact? How do they, is there actual contact information, or is this something, obviously, when we get this posted up, that we can tell people where to directly go?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, contact me directly, phone or email. I'm always checking the Crusaders email account that we have, but if phone's easier, pick up the phone and call me. Absolutely, we can leave my contact information along with the podcast. And whether for volunteering or for getting your child involved as an athlete, you have any questions about the program, and a lot of times too, if parents aren't sure if it's right for their child, and we certainly have had some athletes that have come that have been on the younger side, and they maybe weren't quite ready for it, and then they've returned 2 years later. But we always encourage people, for the first practice, if you want, just come down and watch it. And I think you're going to be very impressed with what we do in terms of certainly teaching some basketball skills, working on coordination, but most importantly, having fun. We do some non-basketball activities that the kids have fun. One of the favorite activities actually for the team is playing kickball at the end of practice, right. And they absolutely love it. But if you have any questions about it, contact me or come down on a Thursday night and check it out, and I'll be more than happy to. Or John McElroy, I'd be more than happy to talk to you.
Absolutely, the head of informational services. Obviously, we have a page on our website, NAYouth.com, which is dedicated to the Crusaders, and we have Brian's email address directly on that. Anybody that needs a cell number or whatever, contact me at the youth center, and I'll make sure you get that information. I do believe the best thing is come down on a Thursday night. Our gym is a unique gym in terms of being all glass, so you can sit out in the hallway without going in the gym and just kind of observe it and check it out. So one thing that I wanted to say is that people who don't know about the Crusaders, and I tell a quick story that a number of years ago I had a board of directors meeting up on the second floor, and a board of director asked me point blankly, in your 7 days, tell me one thing that happens at the gym or the youth center that just makes you smile. And I said, it's here tonight, come on over here. And I brought him over to the glass, and he looked over down on the gym and saw, everything that you've actually explained today. And I said, this is probably one of the most awesome programs North Andover does. It's one of the most awesome programs the youth center gets to partner with, and it's pretty impressive. So Brian can tell you all the information you want, but I tell you, come down and check it out. I think it's pretty interesting.
Yep, I agree.
Brian, we like to give our podcast guests kind of like a final word. Again, this is maybe going out to some kids that are listening that want to know how to participate, maybe parents, thinking back to my sister 30 years ago, what's out there? How do I get my kid involved in a recreation type program? What's your final word to all those people?
My final word would be come down and try it out. We've had over the years several parents who have come to us and thought, as a volunteer, as my child to volunteer, I'd love for him to get involved, him or her get involved in this, but I'm not sure they're going to be comfortable with it. And absolutely, students that haven't been around athletes with challenges, they're a little bit uncomfortable at first, but very quickly does that comfort level rise tremendously. And it's absolutely awesome to see. We have several friends in the community that we have introduced to the program, and they weren't aware of it, and I've got them involved coaching, or their children involved as partners, as volunteers, and they absolutely love it. They're absolutely hooked now, and they talk about it being one of the most wonderful things that their children have ever gotten involved with. So try it. Come down and try it. You'll love it.
Absolutely. As someone who's involved with sports as much as I am, I sometimes go to games and I see kids that don't look like they're having fun. They don't have smiles on their face. And then I come to the Crusaders on Thursday night, and just a kid getting a basket, or one of the volunteers helping them learn how to dribble more than 3 dribbles in a row. Fun is underestimated. It is fun. The smiles will make you smile. So again, I actually think back to that original meeting with my buddy Nick Savarese and the wonderful Kathy Keith that actually started this. And like a lot we do at the youth center, it started small and it's grown to what it is right now. And if you haven't participated in this program or seen this program, check it out. I wish you guys the best of luck over at my buddy John McVeigh's Brooks School. I hope the kids have a great time. I know John and his staff will put on an unbelievable day for you guys and for the parents, and that's really what it's all about.
Yep, absolutely.
So, Brian, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it, and I hope this information gets out to more people about this special program.
Thank you, Rick. This was wonderful. I enjoyed being here.
Great. We do have some upcoming podcasts coming out. Next week, we're going to have Rick Green and Terry Holland here talking about the amazing Recreation Complex project. A couple years down the road, folks, you're going to witness an amazing project we're putting together over at the old middle school fields. It is going to be a community highlight. It's going to have playing fields, walking paths, and an amphitheater, and a lot of great things. So they're coming in to actually talk about how the project got started, where we are with funding on it, and the fact that we're putting a shovel in the ground this spring. So they'll be here. After that, we have Allison Colarusso, Sarah Hick, and Christina Payat from the North Andover High School Focus Program that is going to come in and talk about the amazing work that the Focus Program is doing with high school kids. And then we're actually booked through April. So again, looking for feedback. If there's certain topics that you want us to get on, get in touch with me, and we'll put a little podcast together on that. Great feedback from last week's Juuling and Vaping podcast with our guests, Cam and Lauren, on the dangers and the epidemic of the situation, and it's been spread all around town, and thank you for all sharing on that. So we are going to try to make it easier for folks to get our podcast. Right now, you have to log on with Podbean or iTunes or Google Play, or actually log on to our website. We are creating, through to Chris McClure, our IT director in town, we're going to have our own youth center YouTube channel. So once these are posted on the podcast sites, we will also have them on YouTube, so you can get immediate access to it, as opposed to registering and signing in and things like that. So I'm pretty excited about that. So again, thanks to Brian for coming on today's podcast. And as we finish every podcast, we always say, too much passion is not enough passion.